Is her living family member haunting her grandmother's home, or is it something else?
Unlocking the Soul, a podcast hosted by Rob Cimperman and produced by Simplify Films.
Welcome to the 67th topic of Unlocking the Soul podcast with Rob Cimperman. This is the start of Season 3, and a new format will focus on practical advice by addressing questions and stories from the new r/Unlocking the Soul subreddit, the new official community of the podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast to show your support. Today's story and plea for help comes from the user Wooden8935 with permission. I'll read it, then walk through a few possible spiritualism explanations and give my assessment of what's going on here. But leave your comments on Reddit or here, or even my Unlocking the Soul Facebook group, and tell me what you think is going on. She writes, "Can anyone assist me in finding out what's happening in my grandmother's home? Hello all, I would like to share some interesting experiences in the past few months and maybe could help identifying what it could be. It started when my grandmother went to the ER and almost passed away. In September, my grandmother was taken to the hospital for some health issues and left her house entirely as it was. I went to collect some clothing and use the bathroom while there. Her bedroom is across from the bathroom, and from the bathroom I could hear my grandmother call my name. But as previously mentioned, my grandma wasn't in the house at the time. I didn't reply and finished up my business, but when I was leaving, I saw what looked like my grandma sitting on her bed. I quickly left the house and went back to where I was residing. Through the rest of September, after she got out and into December, I would hear my grandma yell for me, to which I would go to her and ask what it was that she needed, only for her to respond that she never called my name at all. Now, onto the most recent events. December 29th. I sleep in the living room on the couch at my grandmother's house, and around 3 in the morning, I hear my uncle yell for me from the basement, Uncle's workshop. My uncle had not visited since Christmas and was not in the home. December 31st. My grandmother's account. My grandmother called me to her room and asked if my uncle was in the home. No, he was not. Then she goes on to tell me that she had just heard my uncle in the cousin's bedroom yelling about something over the video game mic. But she says, my cousin also heard this, and his TV and the console was off, no audio. Overall, a very confusing situation, and recently when I hear anything calling for me, I've begun to respond simply by asking, yes? Now, I love that trick at the end there because that's exactly what you learn to do when your young children call your name for their 50,000th time in a day. But she says that there have been even more situations in the home that she didn't go into, but she's open to theories about what this could be. So what's going on? Now, in spiritualism and metaphysics circles, hearing voices of people who are still alive often suggests a connection between your own inner ears and the energetic footprint or active thoughts of those people. Generically, this is called clairaudience, clear hearing. It's the psychic ability to hear sounds, music, or voices from the non-physical realm. It's less well known than the term clairvoyance, which is seeing via extrasensory perception, but it's still very common. The Psychology Today journal reports voice hearing is somewhere between 5 to 15% of the general population, but some broader definitions that include one-off experiences jump that to 75%. My episode 28 about post-death spirit visits, I described my great-grandmother hearing a disincarnate voice immediately after her own mother's death in her home, asking her to open the window to help her soul move on. But in this case, if you have a strong or emotional spiritual bond with a relative, you may pick up on their active thoughts via their soul frequency. Most commonly, people report hearing a living relative call their name just as the person is thinking of them intensely or is about to call them on the phone. So the first theory to try out here, it's a little more obscure than the other ones I'll cover, but it came to me first, so I want to honor my intuition on this. But first, I asked the OP for some more information about the hospital visit. She told me she was hospitalized for the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease flare-up that made her lose oxygen to her brain, and she got CO2 poisoning, from what the doctor said. She was rushed to the ER by ambulance because she couldn't breathe and was there for 2 weeks in the ICU. The doctor told us to prepare for the worst because of how sick she had been due to the lack of oxygen to the brain, and then she slowly bounced back after a few days. So here's my idea: a soul walk-in for the end-of-life period. Walk-ins were most famously discussed in Dolores Cannon in her first book, Five Lives Remembered, and by Ruth Montgomery in her 1979 bestseller, Strangers Among Us, which used U.S. presidents as examples, but also covered by many others. Soul contracts lay out a soul's plan, what it is for a lifetime, what the body is to be inhabited by the soul, what lessons or tests are queued up, and it generally says that you're going to ride out the entire lifetime. But plans can be amended for a variety of reasons. And the reason I bring this one up is Montgomery, Cannon, and others talk about how there are souls available for walk-ins who specialize in the end-of-life process. So if your own life plan doesn't require you to experience dying firsthand, you can have another soul step in for the final days or even months to manage that situation, while your primary soul moves on to other endeavors or simply observes the final stage of life. So my first thought was that this was the case here. The grandmother had a near-death experience, which is often the entry point for a walk-in. And that grandmother's soul was still interested in the family and was making contact due to the strong attachments it maintained with its loved ones. Now, the markers of this occurring would include a few things that the OP should watch for but didn't mention. So it would include a sudden recovery after the near-death experience, like a relative who is expected to die from surgery or a stroke suddenly stabilizes or recovers in a way that defies medical explanation, at least for a while. A personality reset, so after waking up from a coma or deep sleep, the person seems fundamentally different. They may have the same memories because the walk-in has access to the brain's files, but their emotional reaction to those memories has changed. There'd be a loss of grudges. A relative who was historically bitter or angry or fearful may suddenly become serene, forgiving, peaceful. And they would have new preferences. They might suddenly dislike food that they've loved for 80 years, or start listening to a different genre of music. And also, family members often report a different personality behind the eyes. The gaze may feel more intense or strangely unfamiliar. They may also become uncharacteristically focused on tying up loose ends, organizing finances, giving away possessions, or reconciling old family feuds. They would have a lack of fear. While the original soul may have been terrified of death, the walk-in approaches it with a matter-of-fact awareness. They speak of death as a transition or a trip, with little anxiety at all. So this could be a valid explanation, except for the uncle's voice. Darn it. So let's put a pin in that one for now. The second explanation to consider is psychic echoes, or residual energy. Now, places can hold on to the energy of the people who spend a lot of time there. It's sometimes called a stone tape. It's seen as a residual imprint. So unlike a sentient haunting where a spirit might interact with the living, the stone tape theory suggests some hauntings are simply non-interactive recordings of past events that may have been etched into the physical environment, like etching in a stone. If your relatives live in the house or visit often, their voices may become recorded in the energetic fabric of the walls or particular objects that held meaning. When the house is quiet, you may become sensitive, and maybe enough to hear a replay of these high-traffic, energetic moments, even though the relatives aren't physically present. While this seems to explain the non-interactive nature of the voices, we aren't told of any intense event occurring in the house, but still a possibility because there are a lot of intense emotions going on here. Third is thought forms. Now, Seth, as channeled by Jane Roberts, talked extensively about this in the book The Nature of Personal Reality. Basically, if a person thinks about a place or a conversation repeatedly and with great emotion, they can unintentionally create a thought form. This is an underappreciated phenomenon in my view. This would be a localized, sort of a bundle of energy that carries the vibration of the person's voice and presence. And because the relatives are still alive, their ongoing thoughts about home or their daily routines can manifest as audible snippets that the OP would have perceived as a sensitive person, or perhaps just due to the heightened emotional state going on. A related idea to all this is the idea of astral travel or bilocation. So I'm going to group this together because during sleep or daydreaming or intense focus, A person's spirit can travel to a place that they're thinking about. So if the OP's relatives are currently dreaming or deeply reminiscing about being in this house, their astral presence might be momentarily audible. You aren't hearing a ghost, you are hearing the extra physical presence of their living spirit. Now, next would be mimics or playful or impish spirits. Now, we need to consider mischievous spirits or even nature spirits that use familiar voices of loved ones to get your attention or to get a rise out of you. You would know this is the case because the voice says things that your relatives would never say, or the tone feels off, too sharp, mocking, confusing, and this usually leaves you feeling drained or anxious or uneasy rather than just curious. Usually, this is just a startle or play, but spiritualists would often advise clearing of this space if the voices feel confusing or create a sense of unease. This is the explanation the majority of comments on this Reddit story gave, but I don't think it fits the voices reported or what they're saying. And I go into this during my interview with energetic healer Barbara Buck in my episode 18 about possessions and energy attachments. She warns that external entities are a common knee-jerk reaction because we love blaming others for problems, but they are very rare. The cause, rather, of most energetic issues are our own uncleared emotions. So clearings can at best give temporary relief. So again, a possibility, but not likely in my view. And finally, when exploring spiritual causes, it's helpful to also rule out more earthly phenomena. So there's the brain's tendency to find patterns, like voices, in random noise, such as a humming fan or running water. This is known as audio pareidolia. I don't think that's the case here, especially since we have a total of 3 witnesses. And another thing to consider is hypnagogic hallucinations. That's hearing voices right as you're falling asleep or waking up, which is a common occurrence, also discussed in episode 23 about shadow person sightings. But again, I don't think that fits this situation as described. So in conclusion, I find the most likely explanation to be the thought forms. Why? Because the people whose voices are being heard are in heightened emotional state with regards to this house. The grandmother was in a hospital being told the end is near, wondering if she'd ever be home or see her family members again. The uncle presumably would also have been extremely worried and emotional, thinking about their grandmother and her home. And the OP, grandmother, and cousin were all perceivers in this situation. They would also be having a similar emotional response at the time, and they may be especially receptive. So this is very similar to stories I cover with regard to post-death spirit visits. But in this case, nobody has crossed over yet. But I would expect a high likelihood of an encounter when that does occur. Now, this would be the most benign explanation, as everyone here is friendly and the symptoms should resolve on their own soon. However, that does not mean you have no precautions to take. If you are picking up on energetic noise or voices of living relatives, it's often because your energetic boundaries are a bit too open, or the space has become cluttered with residual energy. There are several techniques to ground the energy of you and your home and to clear the atmosphere. First is spiritual space clearing. The goal here is to reset the energy of the room so that only your frequency and the physical presence of those who are still remaining in the home is permitted in. There's smoke cleansing. You can use sage, palo santo, or dried rosemary. Move through the house, specifically into the corners and closets, with the intention that only energy that belongs here and served my highest good may remain. And then there's sound clearing. So high-frequency sounds can break up stagnant energy. You can use a singing bowl or bell, or even just clap loudly in the corners of the room where you hear voices most often. You can try salt barriers. Place small bowls of sea salt in the corners of the rooms. Salt is believed to act like an energy sponge, absorbing residual thought forms or echoes. Empty and replace the salt every few days. If you're naturally clairaudient, which is psychically sensitive to sound, imagine a bubble of golden or white light surrounding you. Visualize the outer layers of this bubble as a filter that allows physical sound but blocks energetic or psychic noise. Then there's earthing or grounding. Physically connect with the earth. Stand barefoot on grass or soil for 10 minutes. This helps drain the excess psychic energy from your own system and pulls your awareness back into the physical world. They even sell grounding mats that you can plug into the ground wire of an electrical outlet if you don't feel like going outside. Or you could try carrying hematite or black tourmaline stones in your pockets. A classical method for staying heavy and grounded in your own body. This makes you less susceptible to picking up others' frequencies. And you can also try setting intentional boundaries. In spiritualism, remember, intent is law. You have the right to claim your space. So speaking aloud, you might say, I recognize these voices or echoes, but I am choosing to be in a quiet space now. I close my energy to these sounds. Visualize a silver cord connecting you to the relatives you keep hearing. Imagine yourself gently unhooking that cord and handing it back to them. This doesn't hurt the relationship, it just stops the leaking of the energy into your space. Next time you hear a voice, try these next 2 steps and see what you're dealing with. First, acknowledge and redirect. Say out loud, I hear you, grandmother or uncle, but I'm busy right now. Please save it for when we talk in person. If it's residual energy recordings, it will likely keep playing or happen again soon. If it's active, it'll often stop immediately because the soul of the person has been acknowledged. And finally, an easy solution is the live check. Send a quick message to the person who you just heard. Just say, hey, you popped into my head. Is everything okay? Their response will tell you if it was an active telepathic ping. So drop a line and tell me if you agree with my assessment. And good luck to the OP. Our energy is with you as you deal with this difficult situation in your family. And if you have your own stories to share or questions to ask, drop it in the r/Unlocking the Soul subreddit or get it to me directly. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast to show your support. Thank you.